going on, AZ Sports fan family? Today what we're going to talk about is Week 2 matchup, Arizona Cardinals versus the Minnesota Vikings. The biggest test for the Arizona Cardinals in this young season so far is, can the Arizona Cardinals do it again? Can we put on a show like we did against the Tennessee Titans? I'm going to go ahead and give you my top 3 things to look out for. Top 3 keys to success, as well as some matchups I'm really looking forward to watch in this game, guys. Let's go ahead and get started. Roll that intro. Alright guys, welcome back in. Now, like I mentioned in the intro, today what I want to talk about is Week 2 matchup, Arizona Cardinals versus the Minnesota Vikings. Can the Cardinals do it again? We did come off an amazing domination versus the Tennessee Titans. And the real test is, can the Cardinals do it again? We'll see. We will definitely see. Before we get started, definitely do me one big favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to the AZ Sports Fan on YouTube. We're on the road to 8K subscribers, and they cannot do it without you guys. So if you're hovering over this channel for quite some time, do me a quick favor, just subscribe and put your post notification bell on, just so you're aware of when we drop the next video or when we go live. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that the Vikings did come off a loss against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they don't want to start their season off 0-2. So, like I always say, whenever you get a team with their back against the wall, they will play you a lot harder, they will play you a lot scrappier. So, those are really the teams that you got to look out for, and this is kind of prime spot for the Minnesota Vikings to really give us their best effort. And if you really look at the standings, the whole entire NFC North are 0-1 at this point. So that division is completely wide open. Not like ours where all of us are 1-0. It's completely different for the NFC North. I'm assuming that the Minnesota Vikings will want to take the opportunity to put a W in that win column, but they got to get through the Cardinals. Without further ado, let's go and just jump right into it here. Whenever I think of the Minnesota Vikings, I think of public enemy number 1, and that is going to be Dalvin Cook. They will be mainly running their run game through Dalvin Cook. Yes, they have Abdullah. Yes, they have Madison. But for the most part, you will see a good heavy dose of Dalvin Cook. His last stats for his last game against the Bengals, 20 carries, 61 yards, and 1 touchdown. Now, this guy is a very explosive running back. One thing that we obviously need to do is basically do what we did against King Henry. If we can do that, that would be absolutely amazing. But that is going to be public enemy number 1, Dalvin Cook. He can definitely go ahead and get you a lot of yards if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, and that's what we will have to stop. Bottom line. Thing to look out for number 2 is going to be their wide receiving core. Now, in my opinion here, 2 wide receivers you really need to look out for is going to be Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and the other one that was surprising to me that honestly I've never really heard of, but definitely somebody we got to keep our eye on is going to be, I believe it's KJ Osborne, I believe his name is. But in terms of stats-wise, Thielen had 92 yards, 9 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. So, in my mind, Adam Thielen needs to be that number 1 guy that we need to worry about. But obviously, you have Justin Jefferson coming into his 2nd year in terms of being a wide receiver. He's definitely a player that we got to be looking out for as well. Very, very explosive, young wide receiver. But in my opinion, Adam Thielen's going to be our number 1. So let's go ahead and offset that by putting our number 1 corner on Adam Thielen. Now, number 3, their defense. I feel like their defense is actually very well put together. As a combined, their defense did get 5 sacks on Joe Burrow this last game against the Bengals as well. So that's definitely something that we gotta keep our eye on for sure. Making sure that we keep Kyler Murray upright. I think that's very obviously important, but they do get pressure. I think their defense is just pretty solid as a whole, just in general. So that is another thing that we need to look out for, their defense. Now, keys to success for the Arizona Cardinals. Number 1, and probably the most important one, is going to be pressure. J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones. Basically, I want to see Chandler Jones do exactly what he did against Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. We might not see another 5-sack game, but if we can get 2 sacks and maybe 1 from JJ, that would be absolutely dynamite. Right now, we're living in a dream world, Arizona Cardinal fans. Let me tell you this right now. our defensive line is absolutely great. And honestly, the offensive line kind of need to pick their poison whenever you have J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones on the field together. If you're going to double one, you will see a high dosage of pressure from that other guy. So it's absolutely amazing that we do have this solid depth in the defensive line that we have currently right now. And not even just to mention them, Marcus Golden, Corey Peters, just to kind of name a few, our defensive line this year is stacked. We need to maintain this amount of pressure just like we did against the Tennessee Titans. Keys to success number 2, it's going to have to be Kyler Murray, making us another Kyler Murray magic type of game that we want to see. Obviously, he had 5 touchdowns, 4 receiving and 1 rushing touchdown for Kyler Murray this last game against the Tennessee Titans. And I kind of want to see that again. I love the idea of him running the ball. Not too much, obviously. We're not a run type of first mentality with Kyler Murray. We want to make sure he stays healthy. We want to make sure that we have him through the entirety of the 17-game season. So if we can limit his runs, maybe 2 or 3, but at very explosive runs, I would be absolutely super excited about it. But I think he needs to maintain his magic. I think he needs to do what he did against them. Do some crazy things that we've seen. Like I said, he's had 2 or 3 magical passes versus the Tennessee Titans and stuff that we really haven't seen other quarterbacks do. So it's really awesome that he has a Cardinal uniform on and he's going to be our franchise quarterback. Key success number 3 for me is going to be the offensive line. The offensive line needs to keep Kyler Murray upright. The best way that he is going to succeed is going to be through our offensive line. We don't want him to have pressure constantly. One thing that might be different from this game versus the Titans game that we just went through is that they really didn't cause very much pressure to Kyler Murray. Yes, they got 2 sacks on him, but in the grand scheme of things, coming from a game where they had 5 sacks, it's a reason for concern, being the keys to success in my opinion here. Our offensive line has their work cut out for them, and they need to make sure that Kyler Murray stays upright. Now, I'm not sure of the status of Kelvin Beachum at this very moment while I'm recording this video, but I have some faith in Justin Murray to really, hold it down, as well as Josh Jones, just really depending on who's going to be in guard and who's going to be in tackle. So I think it's very important that our offensive line stays healthy and they keep Kyler Murray healthy as well. And now some key matchups that I'm excited, so dying to see here. My number 1 key matchup that I want to see, and I think most of you guys probably already know this, is DeAndre freaking Hopkins versus Patrick Peterson. We've heard Patrick Peterson chirp a lot during this last offseason, talking all sorts of nasty smack about our front office, which honestly I don't really care, but it actually kind of adds some spice into, let's see what DeAndre Hopkins to do with a Patrick Peterson that really doesn't tackle very much, that really doesn't have that same juice that he once had. So in my opinion, DeAndre Hopkins will smoke him, but we'll see exactly what happens and how this plays out on Sunday. Matchup number 2 is going to be our cornerbacks versus their wide receivers. I think if our defensive line causes the pressure to Kirk Cousins like we did in the last game, I can very well see our cornerbacks have a very good game again. Byron Murphy almost had 2 interceptions, and in my opinion, it could have been 2 pick sixes. So I want to make sure that they can clean up and make sure they take advantage of those interceptions. They don't come very easy. He was fortunate to get 2 opportunities to get 2 interceptions, but unfortunately it went in and out of his hand. But our cornerbacks need to hold up, and that's going to be Byron Murphy and Robert Alford, and we most likely will see Marco Wilson in the defense as well, just depending on what package Vance Joseph wants him on there, most likely the nickel, but we will see what happens there. So I'm very excited and intrigued to see what's going to happen between our cornerbacks and their wide receivers. Next matchup I want to see is going to be our defensive line versus their offensive line. Can we get Chandler Jones a multiple sack game again? This guy is hungry. This guy is wanting to get paid in a contract extension, and he is going for everything to be the NFL sack leader. You already know it, 5 sacks versus the Tennessee Titans, and if we can see that production again, that would be absolutely amazing. But not only just Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, Marcus Golden, Corey Peters, Licky Fotu, and Rashad Lawrence, just to name a few of our defensive linemen. We need to make sure we get pressure on Kirk Cousins, and I want to see if we can translate that same type of energy that we saw versus, the Titans into this Vikings game, because truth of the matter is that the Vikings actually had our number, since the last times we played them. I think back until 2002, I was trying to look at some records here. They actually beat us more times than we beat them. But this year, I feel very confident in our roster and what we can do defensively, offensively, and special teams. I think we might get this W here, but it all starts off with the pressure from our defensive line. Obviously, our quarterback working his magic here again, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. Like always, like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so very much, and I'm out.